Cannon Sports Podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by the head coach of the Corona Centennial basketball program, Josh Giles. Welcome in, everybody, to the Cannon Sports Podcast. Today from Corona Centennial High School, I'm Phil George, and joining us today, we have the head coach of the Corona Centennial boys basketball program. He is the two-time defending California state champion and the MaxPreps reigning National Coach of the Year, Coach Josh Giles.
Thanks for having me.
Coach, we had you on the show about a year ago, but for those who may have missed that show or want to re-meet you, give us a little bit of your background in basketball and coaching generally.
Yeah, this is my 20th year here at Centennial, so it just means I'm getting old. So I've been here for a while, and, you know, we've had some success over the last couple of years. So, yeah, it took over 20 years ago, and, you know, now it took a long time for it to kind of build and get to the point where we are right now, but it's been worth the wait.
Yeah, and for those who missed the last show, we went very deep into Coach Giles' background, and if you want to check that out, head over to our YouTube channel, YouTube at Cannon Sports Media. Check out that interview. This interview is going to focus a lot more on the last couple of years, the recent success of the program, and there's been a lot of it. A lot's happened in the last year since we had you on. Most notably, you guys added another championship to your trophy case.
We did. You know, we finished off the season last year. We just you know, sometimes it doesn't always work out this way, but we started playing our best basketball at the end of the season when it mattered the most, and so it was really good to see that. Especially, you know, we had two really important seniors with Ramsey Huff and Donovan Dent, two great players, two guys that had spent all 4 years here. Both of them started off on the freshman basketball team and worked their way up, and you know, both of them are now, you know, got college scholarships and they're playing at the next level. But for them as seniors, to see them kind of leave on that note was really special. You know, Donnie ended up being the Mr. Basketball State Player of the Year, and he was a two-time CIF Open Division Player of the Year, and he started on our freshman team, you know, and so it just kind of shows you how that progression can work. And same with Ramsey, and now he's at Cal State East Bay, and he's playing for them, and, you know, started on the freshman team but worked his way up. You know, him and both those guys and their parents understood that it was, you know, it's a process. It's 4 years. You know, you don't get – I've never had a college coach come in here and say, like, okay, we really like this guy, but his freshman year, was he on JV or was he on freshman? Oh, okay, we don't want him. You know, that's not how it works. It's a progression. They totally bought into the program. So to see two guys like that finish with a state title was special.
Well, I want to go back to where you said that you saved your best basketball till the end of the year. So in all told, last year you guys went 33-1, the only loss being to the team that ended up as the season end national number one. So if you were playing your best basketball at the beginning of at the end of the year, what kind of basketball were you playing at the beginning of the year when you were still winning all those games?
Yeah, you know, it just I just think, you know, as the season went on, we got better and better at all the little things that we were trying to do. And actually, when we played Duncanville and lost to them at their place, it was a game where we were, you know, just really not ourselves. You know, I just talked about Donovan Dent and, you know, how good he was last year. He didn't have a great game there. Jared McCain played incredible. Devin Williams played really well that game. But we just didn't play really well as a team. And I think we were down by like 14 or 15 points with about maybe 8 or 9 minutes to go. And then we just kept battling. And we got it to, I think we were down 4 with about 90 seconds to go. And we had back-to-back turnovers. So we had an opportunity there. Just came up a little bit short. I think the final score was like 75-70. I think we lost by 4 or 5. So leaving tomorrow, though. We leave tomorrow. We're going to go try to right the wrong, and we're going to go back to Duncanville. We're going to play them again at their place and hopefully have a better outcome this time.
Yeah, exactly. Revenge game on tap this weekend. We'll get a little bit into that game in a sec. Want to button up how last year ended before we get into this year, already off and running in the early season this year. That championship season, again, back-to-back state titles. It wasn't your first 30-win season that you've had, and it wasn't your first state title that you've had, but it was the first time that one of your teams had that kind of dominant wire-to-wire run in the regular season and finished the job in the postseason as well. And, you know, my question is, for all the talent and game planning that you have to employ in any given year, what are all of the things that just have to go right to get that kind of result that you had last year?
Yeah, well, last year it was our first state championship last year. So we won back-to-back Open Division CIF championships. But the year before, so not last year, but the year before when we won it, we were kind of like the paper state champions because there was no state title that year because of COVID. So the northern section didn't play. So they kind of did like a state team of the year thing or something like that after they did the regional. So we got that, but that was actually last year was our first. It was our second state championship appearance, but it was our first actual state title. But going back to your question, I think the biggest thing is you got to stay injury free. You got to be lucky that nobody gets hurt. For the most part, I mean, by the end of the season, everybody's kind of banged up, and nobody's 100%. But you got to make sure that there's no, you don't obviously you want to avoid any kind of like a devastating injury where guys are missing significant amounts of time, or God forbid the whole season. So I think staying healthy is huge. And then in basketball, sometimes in basketball the best team doesn't always win. There's some times where you might have a horrible shooting night, and that happens. When we just said we were 33-1, so we played 34 games last year. In 34 games, you're not going to play your best basketball every single night. So when you have those off shooting nights and you're not shooting well, or you're just not performing the way you are capable of performing, how do you find a way to still win? How do you find a way to still have success? And last year we were able to do that. We were able to overcome, we didn't have any injuries, we were still going through the, COVID protocol, all that madness. So we were still dealing with all of that garbage and trying to figure out how we navigate guys being able to play. If a guy's sick, him having to be out, so just balancing all of that was a huge juggling act. And for the guys to kind of keep their composure, keep their focus, do all that stuff and compete every night was pretty special. But I think the injury-free one that's probably the biggest key that has to happen.
How much of an added bonus is it to have had the success that you had while, like you said, navigating the added challenge of the COVID protocols and restrictions? And of course, that's something that everybody had to do
right. I think it was a huge distraction, because you're constantly doing this, that, and not last year, but the year before. So in 2021, when we won CIF that year, our season didn't start till like April. So we played the CIF championship game at Sierra Canyon. It was in the middle of June. And, having to deal with like the testing and all of that stuff, it was a lot. It was a lot, but it was a lot, like you said, it was a lot for everybody. And then last year it wasn't as bad. We still had kind of like the attendance, requirements. Like we only were allowed to have a certain amount of people in the gym at the beginning of the year last year. But as the season progressed, that kind of stuff all, finally went away. And we got back to being normal, so that was kind of fun. And then, to have the end of the season being where you're playing in front of a packed house again and, having that kind of environment, high school sports is, you only get to do it once. And when you get around the right environments and, our student section the last couple of years has been really, really good. And so when you get in those environments, when it's loud and it's packed gyms and stuff like that, those are always fun. Those are the games you remember the most.
Well, and sitting in this gym right now and looking around, it looks like this holds quite a few people, and I'm sure that provides a pretty nice home court advantage when you do get to pack the place.
It's, we joke about it. It's a small kind of a cracker box of gym, but it's ours. You know what I mean?
And I bet it gets loud.
It does get loud in here, and our student section's kind of right over there. They always have a DJ over here in the corner, so they're blaring the music. And to me, the more loud and obnoxious it can get in here, the better it is for us. It's a small gym, so it's claustrophobic in here. It's like it feels like everybody's on top of you, and there's nowhere to go. But we're used to it. We work out and practice in here every day. We just got done with practice before we set up for this. So, for us, it's like, it's not the greatest gym. It's kind of small. It's got a lot of flaws, but it's ours. And so that, that's the kind of way we approach it. And I think, being a public school, this is far from a country club. We don't have all the bells and whistles that some of the other schools do. Like, we're sitting here. I'm in a hoodie because it's like 50 degrees in here. So it's freezing in here, and it's one of those things. It's not great, but it's ours. And to have that environment back has been a lot of fun.
You just brought up being a public school. That's one thing that I wanted to touch on as well. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk about competitive equity, especially down here in the CIF, between the private schools and the public schools. We just saw on the football side, sidebar, great program that you have
Yes.
in football here as well.
Yes.
But we just saw on the football side, Mater Dei beating Alamitos 52-0,
Yeah.
private school, public school matchup. Yeah. You guys, as a public school, have consistently in the last few years been among the top teams in the state, in the nation. Obviously, no matter where you're coaching, you take that as a badge of honor. But how much more of a badge of honor is it that you're able to do that in a public school environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does make it all the more special. I think it makes it all the more special of what the players have been able to achieve here. But we went through it too. I would say in the mid, like 2000, probably I'd say like 2014 through probably 2019-ish. We were always like the third to fifth best team in Southern California. There were certain teams that we couldn't beat, like there was years where Sierra Canyon or Mater Dei, throw Chino Hills in there when they had a couple of their really special teams. Etowanda from time to time. Long Beach Poly had a couple really good teams in there, where we just were constantly the third to fifth best team in Southern California. So you might get to the semis, but, you kind of had your work cut out from you from there. So it was tough. And there was, in 2014, we did happen to beat, we did beat Chino Hills, and we got to the state finals that year. But we were consistently in that realm of being like third to fourth best team in Southern California. And now over the last couple of years, we've been able to, we've had the right players. And I think that's always huge. Like a lot of people talk about the talent, and this team has this much talent, or they have this many good, all of that is great. And you do have to have good players to win in the open division. But I think more so than having good players, you have to have the right players. And the last couple of years, we've had the right players. Extremely talented, but they're the right guys. Because for all of their abilities, winning matters more. So for them, and it's been pretty special for us the last couple of years, because we've had guys that they're more committed to winning than they are to scoring 20 points. So having those right guys has helped put us over the edge, where we have been able to now beat a Mater Dei or a Sierra Canyon, a Harvard Westlake, and all these other teams that, year in and year out have special teams. So it's been really nice to be able to do that. And I just think it's, it makes it that much more special for us as a public school to be able to do that.
You mentioned several of those players who contributed to the success last year. Some of those guys are now on to the next level. Some of those guys are returning for another run this year. And obviously, while they're the ones competing day in, day out on the floor, a lot of it's got to do with you as well. And you were honored for those efforts with the MaxPreps National Coach of the Year Award. And after having previously won about every other state and regional Coach of the Year award that you can possibly win over the course of your career. And I know the coaches typically aren't ones for individual awards. I know that success is typically measured in creating successful young men after high school, winning championships. But at the same time, considering that there are 17,000 high schools in the United States, and it was declared that not one of them has better coach than you, that's got to be pretty validating.
Yeah, it was nice, and it was kind of a surprise, and I definitely appreciate it, and I don't try to downplay it in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, for me, Jared McCain, Gatorade State Player of the Year, to me that matters more. I care more about that, winning state, winning the Open Division title, Donovan Dent being Mr. Basketball, those things to me are a little bit more special, and I take a little bit more. It's kind of funny. I celebrate those a heck of a lot more than I celebrate any of the stuff for me. I definitely didn't become a coach for any of those things, but I think it just the part of it that made it gratifying, for me was the fact that all the hard work and all that stuff. We had waited 19 years. It took us 19 years for us to win a state title here. So, putting in, all those years of banging your head up against the wall, and you come up short, and you come up short, and you get close, and then you come up short. And then, there's some years where you're just not as good as these guys. So it ain't going to happen this year. But for all of those things, then for it to finally happen, so for me to finally win that state title, that was pretty special. And then, again, then you win the state title, and it's funny because I look back on it and the things that matter, and that was a great game and all those things, and we were able to, we tried to give it away there at the end, but we were able to come through in the end. And when I kind of reflect and I see the game and all that kind of stuff, the thing that sticks out to me the most was the celebration afterwards. Right after we won, had a huge hug with Donnie and Ramsey, the two seniors that were such great captains for us last year. That was special. Jared and Devin and Aaron, those guys that had huge roles, the hugs and the pictures with them after the game, that to me is more important than the actual award. The award is the byproduct of the success that those guys had.
Absolutely. So let's get into some of that hard work that you've had to put in over the last couple of decades as the coach here. To go over the results again, the state championship, 14 league titles, haven't lost a league game since 2017, but let's get into the actual anatomy of how that's built. We hear in the college game the stories of a guy like Calipari or Saban walking into a recruit's house, laying their rings out on the coffee table, and boom, there's the next 5-star recruit. Now,
right.
Number one, this isn't college, and you don't have the ability to carefully curate a roster like that through the same type of recruiting process. And also, that's just the headlines that you hear in the media, and what that doesn't show is the actual day in, day out hard work, as you said, banging your head against the wall that it takes to build a championship program of that caliber. What are some of the less sexy things that don't make the headlines that you're doing to build this?
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, we talked about the right players. We go in the morning because the late start stuff with our school, we start a little bit later. So we practice every day in the morning, and, we have guys, like the Jared McCains and the Eric Freeney's of the world. Most of the guys on our varsity team, they'll be in here at 6:30 in the morning every single day. So we're in here at 6:30 a.m. Those guys are getting in work. 7:30 to about 8:20-ish, we'll be in the weight room. And then usually we're back down here, and then on Wednesdays we'll go about 8:40 to 10:30 on the floor for practice. On Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Fridays, something similar where guys are in here from 6:30 to 7:30. Then we're on the floor practicing from 7:45 to 9:15, 9:20, and mixing in some weight room days with that, conditioning, doing all those things where we, myself and the football coach, Coach Logan and I have a good relationship here. So he lets us use the football field for conditioning. They use the gym when they do their walkthroughs on game days. So we kind of switch roles where we get to go out on the football field and we run. So, doing all that stuff, putting in the work in the weight room. Yesterday I wasn't too thrilled with how we played in our game on Monday. So yesterday we had a not so pleasant film session and a not so pleasant, probably 2-hour practice. And my attitude, if we would have done this podcast, my demeanor yesterday was probably a little bit different than it is today. So then, today, again, we're back in here, 8:15. Guys are showing up at 7 a.m., getting in extra work before practice. So all of those things are tough. On the coaching side of it, this year we're traveling so much. I feel like I'm more of a travel agent than a high school basketball coach, organizing all the trips that we're taking this year. So those are some of the things. But again, I think it goes back to having the right players that are not necessarily, some guys will show up. Like if you tell them to be here at 7 a.m., they'll show up. But right now we have a group of guys that are actually willing to show up. Like they want to be here. It's not like you're forcing them. You know what I mean? And I think that's a huge difference.
Yeah, the day in, day out work and the philosophy that you bring is one part of it, but also if you're in this profession long enough, you're going to have to evolve as well. Mm-hmm. And there are several areas where coaches have had to evolve in the area of technology, analytics, social media, NIL, and the first two and the last two are very different things. So let's go ahead and start with on the technology side. So from a strategy standpoint, what are some of the biggest ways that you've had to adapt the way that you coach, maybe some of the strategies, technology that you've had to incorporate into this program to stay ahead of the curve and keep that edge?
Luckily, I have two really, really good assistant coaches in Ramon Neal and Brian Kenny that handle the technology stuff for me because I still don't get it. So I just need to be in a situation where I can push play and I can watch the film. And so they make sure that I'm able to do that. So I have some great assistants and with the workout stuff, with Shannon Sharp and Jalon Wheelwright, Anthony Neal, those guys are in here a lot in the mornings working with these guys individually, doing that kind of stuff. So from the technology piece, we have some of those guys in here that really help me with that. The other one you said about social media?
Right? Yeah, social media and NIL. Obviously, those are two things that are becoming a significant part of amateurism, both at the high school and college levels. And I know that there's only so much involvement that you as a coach are able to have on those sides, but just kind of your observations on how those elements are affecting the landscape of amateur basketball.
You said the whole adapt thing. That's something that we have definitely embraced. That 4 or 5 years ago, there's no way I'm getting involved with any of that kind of stuff. But again, over the when we had the COVID, the breaks, and the shutdowns and stuff, when we came back from that season, we started playing. There were some guys that started coming and filming our stuff, and when we got into the playoffs, they did a little documentary on us, and it was called The Opportunity. And a guy named Marcel that's been around our program, worked with Baller Visions and all that kind of stuff, and he kind of filmed our stuff, and he put together this 1.5 hour long documentary of us going through that playoff run. And all of a sudden, the thing got 150,000 views, and social media started to take off, and people started to kind of get involved with it. And then Jared McCain at that same time was going through his thing with TikTok, and now he's got close to 2 million followers on TikTok. It's crazy. And he's got 500,000 or 400,000 followers on Instagram. So our Instagram kind of started to take off, and now by tapping into that, you gave the example of Nick Saban and some of these guys can put down their rings and stuff like that, and that's how they recruit. Well, for us, we just kind of through the social media, we kind of tell the story of what Centennial basketball is about, and now we work hard. We try to compete every day, and we do all those kinds of things. But there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we do that's really fun, and we allow our players to be teenagers, and every once in a while, I know it does rub people the wrong way, but our bench, we want our bench to be really, really animated, and we want it to be in there. And if you watch the NCAA tournament, you see the benches in the NCAA tournament, guys are celebrating.
I immediately think of Monmouth a couple of years ago.
Right. They have guys, they're into it and stuff like that, and they have passion, and they're into it. And so for us, we don't want to dial that down. We want them to, enjoy the process and do that stuff. And I know some people don't like it. And I mean, if I'm being 100% honest, I really don't care. I really don't care if they don't like it. Because
I think the difference there is authenticity. When you have the bench going nuts, they're showing emotion, they're getting up for their teammates, they're getting up for a big moment in the game. That's not something that they're doing for social media. Right. That's something that they're doing because it's genuine, and somebody with a camera just happens to pick it up and it goes viral.
Well, and to me, what kind of an ogre are you if you're sitting there as a head coach and you got guys that may get limited playing time, right? So they're going to have limited playing time, and now you have to tell them sit on your hands, don't move,
right?
No. They work in practice too. They have a meaning for our team, and they are as important as the guys that are starting. And everybody has their role. And so for them, they're hyped and they're into the game. Coaches are hyped and they're into the game. And like I said, I know there's some people that don't like it. And I sort of understand where they're coming from. But I don't care. To me, that's who we are. And, we're going to be animated. We're going to be into it and stuff like that. So I think through the social media, it kind of tells, the story of your program. And by putting it out there, that may or may not attract kids to your program. Some kids may not like that. Some kids may like it. And that's kind of why we play the schedule that we do. I don't find a lot of joy, and I don't see a lot of benefit from playing those games when you win by 40 and you win by 50 points. And I know that in the profession, in high school basketball, I do feel like there are a few people, well, not a few, there's more than a few, but there's coaches that will go out there and seek those games. And like I said earlier about not understanding the bench, things like that, I don't understand that. If we're playing in a game and the other team's bench is going off, well, then shut them up. Let's play well, make them sit down, right?
Exactly.
To me, that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, you don't want them to celebrate.
Yeah,
don't give them anything to celebrate.
Exactly. I mean, to me, it's just hey, the kids have passion and they care about winning or losing. I don't understand why you get mad at that. I don't understand the seeking out the 40 to 50 point win games. I don't see any benefit of it. I don't think you get better that way. And usually I'm more mad after those games than I am after a tough defeat, because if you're challenging yourself and you play really, really hard, we play Duncanville at Duncanville on Saturday. If we go there and we play really hard and we compete and we do all those things and we come up just a little bit short, we're going to get better. If we play a team that we win by 50 and guys are cutting corners and kind of, dogging it, not totally into it, did we get better? My argument's no.
Well, and those are the kinds of games that are much, much closer to the kind of competition that you're going to be seeing in February and March come postseason time.
Right. And, and we talked about it, the record last year, we were 33-1. That's great. But if we were 25-9, but we still won state, there's no, it doesn't say that on the ring, they lost a certain amount of, to me, the record, I don't care about our record. I don't. I care about, did we get better over the course of the year? From game 1 to game 34, are you the same team or did you improve? And I think that's what separates, some of the programs from others. The teams that either get stagnant or kind of go downhill, that's where you got to do some kind of soul searching. Like, what happened? What are we doing wrong? The teams that continually make that push and they get that 1% better every day, and they're just, they're on that, just constant incline of getting better throughout the season. That's what we want to be. And I feel you do that by challenging yourselves. And I think in our next 5 or 6 games, I think we play our next 6 games. I think 5 of them are against teams that are ranked top 15 in the nation.
Yeah, you've got. I have 3 of them written down here. There's Duncanville this weekend. Obviously, by the time this podcast is airing, that game will have been played.
Yep.
Bishop Gorman, they're number 11. Modesto Christian, they're number 21. That's obviously the team that you guys beat for the state title last year. So yeah, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And the last time you were on this show, you gave the mantra anyone, anytime, anywhere. Well, those that's the anyone that you got on the schedule.
I didn't just say that for the podcast. No, that's true. That's how we think about it. It was funny. One of my assistants was talking to the team, and he was like, "Fellas, we want all that smoke. We want all of it." And I mean, I'm not going to say it like that. I'm going to be a little bit different, but to me, it's just like, hey, we want to go play everybody. If you think you're good, then go find out. Let's go challenge ourselves. And again, I would rather seek out that game. I'm sure, there's a lot of people that won't go play Duncanville at Duncanville. So we're going to raise our hand. We'll take that. We'll go do it. I just feel like seeking out those games, again, that it brings out a toughness in your guys. And at the end of the year, being in a state title game or a regional final or an open division final or any kind of must-win game, you're kind of battle tested. You know what I mean? When you're playing top 25 teams in the country, you're battle tested. There's nothing you haven't seen. There's nothing you're not prepared for. You're ready. Now you just have to go execute. Well,
and especially in the case of Modesto Christian, that's a team that you did have to go through on your way to the state title. So in addition to seeing the type of competition that you're going to be playing in February and March, you may very well run into an actual team that you're going to have to see again.
Yeah, and I had a couple people saying, why would you play Modesto Christian? There's a chance you could play them in the state championship game. And my response was well, if they're the same team in March that they are in December, I would be surprised. I would like to think we won't be. So to me, playing that game in December, it's just a challenge. We'll be a little bit different when it comes March. There'll be some tweaks. There'll be some things that maybe we don't run anymore. There'll be things that we run more of. You know what I mean? There'll be different changes that we make throughout the season as we get used to, some of the personnel. We talked about we had to replace 2 really good seniors. We're kind of still figuring out how that looks and, still making improvements. But yeah, come March, come February, I don't think we're going to be the same team we were in December.
Now, there's obviously another side to all of this. We're talking to you about the teams on your schedule that you're looking forward to, the big matchups that your program has. Now, to a lot of other teams in the league, you are that big matchup. And that's what comes with being the number 3 ranked team in the nation. There's a target on your back. Some of the coaches in the southern section, David Rabibo, said about your program, you set the bar. Andre Chevalier over at Sierra Canyon says everybody needs an antagonist, and Centennial is it. And obviously you're a veteran at this. You've been doing this a while, but for the players, that takes some kind of mindset to be able to get up when you know that everybody's gunning for you. What kind of mindset does that take, and how do you foster that in your players?
Honestly, it's something that we have to talk about every day, because there is a little bit of that where we might be showing up and it's like, okay, we got so-and-so today. Well, that so-and-so that you're playing has known that they were playing us for a very long time. You know, that game has been circled. That game is ready to go. So it takes it takes a little bit extra motivation, a little bit more focus, because you don't get, basically for us right now, because of what's happened the last couple of years, we don't get anybody's C+ effort. We don't get anybody's B- effort. You're going to get everybody's A+. You're going to get their A1 effort. You know what I mean? So with that comes a responsibility. There's a dedication to that, where you have to be focused and you have to be ready every single day, because if you come out there and you give your B- effort or your C+ effort, you're going to lose because you're getting their A+.
Right.
And so there is some of that we talk about it every day. You have to be ready for that. But I also want our guys to understand that, every single day that we come out here, you have an opportunity to play high school basketball. We've put together now a national schedule. You're playing at a team that's thought highly of by others. And so, with that, there's a responsibility with that. You got to bring it. And I'd like to think that we understand it. Sometimes it's a little bit tough, because they're still teenagers, and, teenage boys aren't very smart. So, there's some of that where we have to kind of remind them from time to time, but it definitely has a responsibility with it. And, obviously those two guys, those two coaches, we have, we've had battles with them over the last couple of years, and they're very, very good at what they do. And I have a ton of respect for them. So it's nice that they think highly of us. But there's definitely a responsibility with everything that you do when you come on the court, when you're ranked that high.
Well, and especially for guys like Jared McCain and Devin Williams, it's not going to get any easier from there, because Jared's about to go to Duke, Devin's about to go to UCLA. I mean, those are two other teams with targets on their back, and
right.
It's going to be much more of the same as long as they're over there.
Right. And high school basketball is different. It's different than college basketball. And we talk about it all the time. Fellas, you don't want to fast forward through your senior year of high school. High school basketball is pure, and it's all these things. When you go on to college, it's much more of a business. It's a little bit harder. People don't realize how hard college basketball is. We've had some really, really good players that have come through Centennial over the last couple of years. And, now they're in college and they're playing and they're freshmen. And, there's been a couple of games they played 9 minutes. We had a really, really good player come through here. He played like 2 minutes last night. And it's like, fellas, like it's hard. College basketball is hard. It's not the same. So enjoy it, get the most out of it. Don't waste any games, because when you move on, it's not easy. It's definitely difficult.
Yeah, and that's one thing that we talk with a lot of coaches on this program about is life off the court and off the field, and how important it is to really, get the most out of the full experience, because whether it's high school basketball, high school football, or just the high school experience in general, you only get one shot at this.
Right.
What are some of the things that you advise your players on to kind of slow down, take in the moment, and not be so singularly focused on one thing, even if it is the one thing that they pay you to coach?
Right. I think just enjoying the process of trying to get better every single day. We're really big on character. That's something that we talk a lot about, because I think if you're a poor character person off the floor, you'll be a poor character person on the floor. So that's something that we talk about a lot, so our guys, like, if you walk around our campus, we don't get in trouble. We don't have guys getting, detentions and referrals and stuff like that. I don't believe in that stuff. So, every once in a while it does happen. And, that, usually little trip to the track and, little extra conditioning takes care of it. But, it's, we try to focus on, being a good person, having high character values, and being that kind of, being somebody that people aspire to be. You want to motivate people. Like a guy like a Jared McCain, you use some of those guys. You want that, those guys should be inspiring to kids. They should be a role model to kids. And especially now with social media, there's so many people that have kind of like direct contact with them, and they may not know that person, but that person feels like they know them because of what they see through social media. So when you have that interaction with that person, you don't want to be a jerk. You want them to, think highly of you, and just inspiring people by doing things the right way. And I think what you do on the floor is way more important than what you do on the floor. And, we talked about having the right guys. And the last couple of years, we've had some really, really good basketball players. The Donovan Dents, the Jared McCains, the Devin Williams, all these guys that, I'm sure you're going to talk about, they're really good basketball players. They are way better people than they'll ever be at basketball. And so when you have that, I think it really helps. And I think that's something that is a role model, I think, to the younger kids in our programs. We have kids on our freshman and JV team that I think could be really good players one day. But, it's like, well, does Jared do that? Like, would he ever do that? Like, so that's something that I think really helps. So I think that's something that we try to focus on off the floor, just having that high character, those high character values where you're a good person. And in today's world, unfortunately, we don't see that a lot. And I think if more people kind of, took that approach, it would be a better place. But, just how can you help people? What can you do to inspire somebody? And I think that we have a group of guys right now that really, truly buy into it, which is nice.
That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and meet some of these guys.
Okay.
Like we talked about, you have a very special roster of talent. Starting off with 4 of the seniors that you have, Jared, Devin, Aaron, and Mikey. Those are 4 guys that are all ranked within the top 50 recruits in California. And I believe, if my math is correct, that's the first time in a long time, if ever, that you've had 4 guys that are that highly ranked. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't remember we us having that many guys that highly ranked. It goes back to, it's a great problem to have, right? It just means you have a lot of really, really good players. But then again, when you go and play, you may not know that guy on the other team, but they know who you are. So you're going to get his A1 effort. So I think that's part of it. But yeah, I don't think we've ever had anybody that highly ranked.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get in and talk about some of these guys.
Okay.
You've spoken to their talent, you've spoken to their character, but at the very least, starting off with those 4 seniors, introduce our viewers to those guys and what makes them tick and what they're going to see if they come out and watch a game here at Centennial and those guys are on the floor.
Yeah, so the first one you have is you have Jared right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you got the reigning Gatorade State Player of the Year. He's going to Duke. He's as good of a person off the floor as he is as a player. I think he's really, really easy. I talk about it a lot. He's the most low-maintenance superstar I think you could ever coach because he's the first guy in the gym almost every single day, usually the last one to leave too. And then he'll come by later in the evening and, come back and shoot and get in another workout. He constantly is putting in, it's nothing for him to put in a 5 or 6 hour day easily. That's a daily routine for him. So everything that you see him do on the floor, he's worked incredibly hard to get to that point.
And that's 5-6 hours on top of going to school as a full-time student.
Yeah, and he's never had a B in his life. Oof. So he's a 4.0 student. He's never had a B. And he puts in that kind of effort. Low maintenance superstar. 4.0, never gets a B in his life, and he works 6 hours a day and doesn't even bat an eyelash at it. Nothing we do in practice. Yesterday wasn't an easy practice, and we've had a couple technical fouls in our first game, and that's not something that we do. So we had to do quite a bit of running for those tees yesterday. Doesn't bat an eyelash at it. You just he does and he runs. He had one of those tees, so he had to finish first. But he works every single day, and the moves you see him make and the shots that you see him make in a game, he's in here at 6:30 in the morning, working on that exact same, like hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of shots a day. He's a pretty special person to be around. So unfortunately, we only have him for this year. We got to see if we can petition, get him a 5th year.
Well, good luck with that. You use the word superstar to describe him. That's obviously a big, big word to attach to a guy who's only in high school. But I think it's legitimate. Yeah. And there are a couple of guys on the schedule that he has had the opportunity to play against and will have the opportunity to play against that a lot of other people attach that label to as well. You just had a season opening win against San Ysidro and Mikey Williams, and he had a chance to be matched up with him. And you guys have Sherman Oaks Notre Dame on the schedule, and he'll get a draw with Caleb Foster. Yep. So obviously it's the win or loss that's the most important in that. But from an individual perspective, what is gained by the chance to go up against a Mikey Williams or a Caleb Foster if you're an athlete of that caliber.
Yeah, and I think for Jared, it's just a motivation. It's just another challenge for him, and so it's just something to help motivate him, keep him going, and he definitely he won't talk about it, but he knows who we're playing against, and it's just for him. I think it's just another challenge. It's just something else for him to challenge and push himself to be better for.
Yep, Devin Williams, number 12 recruit in the state, and he's a UCLA commit. Tell us about him as well.
So Devin, very rarely are you going to see somebody that long, that tall with that kind of length that can run the floor the way he does. He's an exceptional athlete. He's every bit of 6'11", and he can run the floor. He blocks shots. He alters shots. We played on Monday. I think he had 7 block shots in the first half. He can knock down threes. Obviously, as he gets older, he's pretty skinny right now, but as he gets older, we all know as you get older, it's a little bit harder to maintain that body frame. So, as he gets older and he puts on weight and he gets stronger, all those things, I mean, his potential of what he could be is through the roof. But, he's another kid that I think he's very coachable. He's somebody that if we holler at him, he doesn't start crying or getting emotional about it. He takes the coaching, he applies it. I just said we had a rough film session on Monday. Well, he was at the end of some of that. And so, like today in practice, he was already starting to make some of those adjustments with it, which is good to see. But I mean, his potential is through the roof of what he could become. But yeah, you're not going to see too many people that length and that size that can run and jump, run the floor and jump the way he does. So he's a special player.
And you got 2 more players on that top 50 board as well. You got Aaron McBride and Mikey Price as well.
And with Aaron, and this is not taking away anything from anybody else. But last year, when we lost Donovan Dent, there was a lot of people because he was such an amazing point guard. And there's a lot of people that are like, man, he's the most irreplaceable player you would ever have. And I actually did a podcast where it went on and on for a good 5-10 minutes where, the gentleman that was interviewing me was talking about how irreplaceable he was. And he's right. He's pretty tough to replace. And they're like, and then next year you have Jared McCain and, it's talking about how irreplaceable Jared's going to be. And then Devin and his length and stuff like that. And it was kind of done. I was like, I think you're forgetting somebody. And I'm like, I don't know if Aaron McBride isn't the most irreplaceable player that you could ever have. And I was like, and that doesn't take away anything from any of those other guys. That's how special Aaron McBride is and his ability to impact winning. He impacts winning in so many ways. It's unbelievable. He's... first off, he's a freak of an athlete. So we can get that out of the way. He's a freak show. But he's 6'7", he's 210, 215 pounds. And he's kind of awkward in some of the stuff that he does, but he can jump off the wrong foot. Doesn't matter. He dunks on people. Pretty much every game you can go ahead and just put him down for about 16 points. He's going to have about 12 rebounds. He's going to block a few shots. He's going to make some ridiculous hustle plays. He can knock down threes. He can get a rebound, push the ball up and down the floor. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can guard just about anybody on the floor. He can guard guys way bigger than him because he's so friggin' strong. He's so strong and he's so athletic. I mean, he impacts winning more than anybody I've ever had. He's another one that's just an absolute unbelievable player, and he's an even better person. Another guy that 4.0 student. I think he's like a 4.3 student. Just works his butt off on and off the floor. Loyola Marymount got an absolute steal with him.
Yeah, I was going to say, headed to a pretty good LMU program that's had some really solid recruiting classes these last couple of years. So going to be really exciting to see what he does staying relatively close to home.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch him play there. But yeah, he's a big-time player. And then last one was Mikey Price.
Yes.
Okay. So
and everybody else that you have on your roster.
So with Mike, he's new to the program and he transferred here, and I think it's a little bit difficult because I think the culture of our program is maybe different than others, and so him having to adapt to that is it's a challenge, but I think he's done well so far. And then we came out and he's been my biggest challenge to him is to be the guy now that we see in games. You got to be that way in practice now too. And so it's funny, that first game when we played against San Ysidro, I didn't think Jared was going to play. He had been thrown up for like 2 or 3 days straight before that, high fever, he was sick as a dog. So he tried to play, but I think Jared only played like 4 or 5 minutes. He was a mess. And so Mike Price goes out there and scores 25 points. And it was like, afterwards we're like, okay, that's great, man. Now I expect to see that tomorrow in practice. Like, where the hell's that guy been? We need to see that dude in practice. And so he's been way better in practice since. He had another big game when we played Rancho Verde here on Saturday night. I think he scored again right around 20 points.
And again, like you said, those are quality opponents.
Yes, and he's Mike's he's a big time scorer. He can knock down shots. He's a big guard. And so, physically he can be a great defender. We just need him to be that great defender all the time. And then, but I'm excited for him because I think, playing here, some of the adjustments he's made to his game, maybe some of the adjustments he's made off the floor as well, I think are only going to help him. And I think he has true potential to play at the next level. I think everybody knows he can play at the next level. But now seeing what he's doing here now and just kind of the adjustments and the focus that he has now, I'm excited for him because I think he's going to have some real opportunities and some real choices here on where he wants to play next year.
So that's the group of seniors that you guys have on your roster. And I'm reminded of our last guest on this show was Matt Sargent over at Notre Dame. And we spoke about the group of guys that he has. And I use the term program-defining group of talent. And that's what it seems that this group of guys is as well. Like you said, you've never had 4 players at the same time who were that highly ranked. You've had the results on the court that you've had. Those are 3 of those guys are headed to some big time schools. Price at this time is uncommitted, but we'll see where he ends up. But let's kind of look ahead to what life looks like after those guys. I know that might be a scary thought, but whereas you are the constant in this program, we talked about the character, the leadership of all of these guys. What have these guys done to put those building blocks in place to mentor the guys that'll come after them and put them in position to have the kind of success that you guys have had with them on the floor?
Right. And I think that's the big challenge to them right now. And that was one of the major topics. It's funny that you asked that question. That was one of the major topics in our film session on Monday was I'm challenging them to do more. I want them to do more of that for the guys that are coming up because I feel that we have our best freshman class that we've ever had. And so we probably have 8 to 9 kids right now that are in our freshman class and I'm not downplaying anybody else's school or anything like that, but just simple facts are at the majority of high schools in Southern California, these guys would be playing varsity basketball. At a lot of schools, they'd probably be starting. And so I had to have a parent meeting and I was like, those are all facts. I'm like, but here, you're going to be playing on JVs this year. And because there's just no playing time on varsity. And assuming those kids, and I'm like, and it was funny at the end of the talk, I was like, if that's a problem for you, Donovan Dent was on the freshman team. He was just Mr. Basketball. Nobody cares. Like, it doesn't matter. It's a process. And if you're bought into the 4-year, it's a process. If you're bought into those 4 years of developing and understanding the process and committing to the process, it's a process. Donnie was on the freshman team. Donnie played on the freshman team, got better, played on varsity as a sophomore, and was second team All-CIF as a sophomore on varsity, coming from the freshman team. But at that time, he had a lot of seniors that were in front of him that were on varsity where he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. And so we're kind of in that situation now, and we have quite a few of those guys that practice with us every day, even though they're not on varsity, but they're practicing with us every day, and then they go play in the JV games. So those guys have the opportunity to be really good next year because we have quite a few of them. And like I said, it's probably the best, definitely the deepest freshman class we've ever had. But I think that's the challenge to those guys is, are you showing them and, being those true leaders to the younger guys coming up. So when you do graduate and you go to a Duke or you go to a UCLA or wherever it is, the guys behind you understand what it took for you to get to that point. Jared and Devin and these guys, they have 3 rings. You know, that you have 3 rings. Are you laying the foundation for those guys behind you to get 3 rings or to get 2 rings or to maybe get more than you? Can they get 4? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's the biggest challenge for them is, you know, like still maintaining and understanding the importance and maintaining the focus for this year, but also leaving a foundation of what it took for you guys to get here so these guys understand it.
Well, that's a great mindset to have them in, and want to wish you and them the best of luck on getting that 4th ring. Josh Giles, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And want to thank you for allowing us to hang out here at Corona Centennial with you, and want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Cannon Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and follow on Instagram at Cannon Sports, TikTok at Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs.